Hey there everyone, let's take a look at all of the pilot primary weapons that are available to you in Titanfall 2. When should you use them, why should you use them, and a whole lot more. Let's get started. Let's take a look at all the assault rifles that are available to you in Titanfall 2. You have 4 selections. You have the R201 carbine, which is basically the return of the R101 from Titanfall 1. This is your bread and butter assault rifle that is just good at all ranges for the most part. You have the Hemlock, which is a 3-round burst, longer range assault rifle, still completely viable at closer ranges, of course, but generally prefers to be used at a little bit longer of a range, in more of an overwatch position as opposed to an aggressive forward position where the carbine might shine a little better. Third, you have the G2A5, which is a single-shot, semi-auto assault rifle. It has about a dozen rounds of mag or so. This may change depending on whether or not you're using extended magazines or not, but this is generally your longest range of all of the different assault rifles available in Titanfall 2. So this isn't, again, to say that it's going to be bad at close range. It actually kind of likes being at close range too, because it's easier to get headshots, and the G2A5 loves getting headshots. It's one of the best rewarding guns for you getting headshots. It's going to be a 2-shot kill with a headshot and body shot, just like an alternator. So very, very powerful stuff there. But again, prefers that longer range, plinking away kind of positioning as opposed to the closer range. The Flatline, on the other hand, is a total opposite. This is the assault rifle that really loves to get into people's faces. It kicks really hard to the left and right, but not so much up and down. So this is perfect for the player that likes to get really close, up and personal to his enemies. It's just going to help you keep your aim on target. You're going to be doing big damage per bullet. This is probably the highest damage per bullet assault rifle, barring the G2A5. It's probably pretty close to that. We don't have exact damage numbers out about yet, but those are kind of pretty comparable. The Flatline is the close range version, and the G2A5 is the long range version. But both of them can cross over and can perform the opposite roles decently effectively as well. The assault rifles in Titanfall 2 are really great in that they have a lot of bleed over, so if you pick one, you're never pigeonholed into a specific role, but at the same time, they are unique enough that if you do want to pick one for a specific role, there is generally one that'll be a little bit better for the exact way you're trying to play. So really, really cool how they have balanced all 4 of these weapons thus far. In terms of mechanically being good, like which ones do I think are going to be the most important at competitive levels of play, which ones do I think are going to be used the most, I think it'll probably be R201, and that's kind of it, actually. I kind of think the R201 is going to reign supreme in most cases, just because it's simply good at everything. There's not a range where it's bad, except for super duper long range, but Titanfall is, in general, not a game where you're going to be playing at super duper long ranges anyways. And if you are going to be playing at those ranges fairly often, then the G2A5 is probably the one you want to go for, because it's still pretty competent at close range, but it's going to give you that extra punch at long range to really reach out and touch somebody. So I think those are going to be your 2 most important ones. The Hemlock will probably fall off to the wayside a little bit, but then again, that may change. Just in comparison to Titanfall 1, we haven't seen the full game released yet. We haven't seen any good Hemlock players yet in the time that we've had playing thus far with some of the pre-release, press demo kind of stuff that we've been doing. But that's a gun that could be a wild card, and the Flatline may also be a wild card, in the sense that this has fantastic hipfire, even out to like middle-ish ranges. It's almost like SMG's level of hipfire, but with a little bit better damage characteristics. So I'm interested to see how the Flatline is going to play out. It may end up being like a bigger brother to the alternator. It may end up being like, I don't really know how to describe this gun. I want to play with it more, I want to experience it more, but definitely keep your eye on this one. It's definitely going to be the wild card for sure. In terms of which assault rifles are going to end up being the most fun, I would probably say the R201 again, just because it's so quintessential. It's so easy to pick up and use and be decently good with that it's hard to not have this be a fun gun, too, because you're going to be performing well with it. Performing well in any game is always fun. Like, you're never going to be like, oh man, I went 32-3. That was such a terrible game, and you feel bad about that. Like, that doesn't happen. So the R201 is definitely going to be the one you go to for having a good time. The Flatline may also be that as well, if you're a more aggressive player, like me, for example, if you're watching some of my gameplay here, which I'm sure you are if you're listening to my voice right now. You can see already that I'm a very aggressive in-your-face kind of player a lot of the time. Not always, but a lot of the time I like to be that way. So the Flatline having great hipfire is just a fantastic weapon for me to pick to both have that close range effectiveness that I crave, but also still have the ability to play longer ranges and be competent, at least longer ranges of what an SMG might allow me. So it's got some really nice dichotomy there, and I'm excited to see where these are going to turn out in the final release. Next up, let's take a look at all of the SMGs available in Titanfall 2. So these are the Car, the R97, the Volt, and the Alternator. Now, the ranges of SMGs are kind of by design a lot tighter than those of assault rifles, so it's kind of hard to characterize them based upon the range and the positioning you're going to be using each and every one of them in, because they're SMGs. Like, you're going to be in close quarters, you're going to be fighting from short ranges with them pretty much always. That's the only range they're really effective in, and they're very powerful in that range, so we kind of have to skip that little part of the discussion here. But the Car SMG is overall going to be your bread and butter. This is going to be the easiest one for you to get into if you're not generally an SMG player. If you're trying to learn that playstyle, to learn that aggressive playstyle, the Car is where you want to start. It's just like the Carbine in that it has a very middle-ish time to kill, a middle-ish number of bullets to kill, a very middle-ish recoil, a very middle-ish accuracy rating. It's just generally in the middle. So that doesn't make it bad. It's not a bad weapon by any means. If you're trying to learn SMGs, this is probably where you want to start, as I've said already, but it feels fine. The hip fire is good. It's an okay gun. It's not a great gun, but it's an okay gun. Definitely not a bad pick by any means. The R97, on the other hand, is probably one of the hardest of all the SMGs to use. So this one has the highest rate of fire. It has the most number of bullets in magazine as well. So this is kind of your bullet hose SMG. This is the one that you want to use at the absolute closest range. If you really want to rip people at close range better than any other SMG, the R97 is possibly the way you want to go. So the cool thing about this weapon is that even though it's got such a high rate of fire, the hip fire spread is still pretty decently accurate, as you can see on the clips playing right around here. I'll try to loop it a couple times so you get a decent view of it, but the hip fire is decent for an SMG. I mean, just all things considered, you know, that the fact that it's an SMG, the fact that it's firing so fast, it's got a pretty good spread. So if you're tap firing this thing at middle-ish ranges, it's going to still be pretty effective. I mean, maybe not as effective as any of the other SMGs, but it's not terrible. It's not, like, worthless. It's definitely better than if you had a pistol in your hands, that's for sure. At least one of the worst pistols, like the Hammond or something. So it's going to be okay. It's going to be really strong at close ranges if you're a really good player, if you're a really strong PC player with great tracking and can knock a couple of headshots in there. It has potential to be a very powerful weapon, but it may be overshadowed by the Alternator. So the Alternator in the R97's bread and butter range has the potential to be a two-shot kill, as long as one of your two shots is a headshot. If your Alternator is amped, then you don't need any headshots. You just need to get two shots anywhere in the body while it's amped and you get a kill. So that raises the question of, is the Alternator's time to kill potentially faster than the R97? Because that could be very problematic for Titanfall 2's SMG game. The R97 had the benefit in Titanfall 1 of technically having the fastest time to kill in the game if you use the scatterfire attachment. If you did not use it, then it had the third fastest time to kill, only behind the R97 with the scatterfire attachment, and another assault rifle with a special attachment that nobody used anyways. So pretty much no matter how you sliced it, the R97 had technically one of the fastest times to kill in Titanfall 1. If the Alternator overshadows the the R97 in that aspect, then you have to wonder, when is the R97 actually going to be better to pick than the Alternator? So this is something that I am still questioning. I would like to see the game actually come out and have a lot more people playing it and see where this ends up falling in the real game. Maybe in the PC player space, people might do a little bit better with the R97 because tracking might be a little bit better. But at the same time, the fact that the Alternator could be a two-shot kill a lot of the time is very compelling. So it's going to be a tough call to choose between these two guns, but I think a lot of people might favor the Alternator at first, and we'll kind of see where it goes from there. Let's go ahead and just talk about the Alternator really quick then, since I've already on the topic. This is probably going to be a little bit better than the R97 at the middle-ish to longer ranges. It's kind of hard to compare to the Car SMG, because these guns are so far out of their element by the time you get to middle-ish or longer ranges that it doesn't really matter which one you have in your hands anyways. They're still going to struggle no matter what you're doing. So it's hard to give an edge to the R97 at any range or in any category here. I kind of think the Alternator may just be the superior choice based upon what I've seen so far. Maybe the balance of the game will change before it comes out. Who knows? But based upon my current playtime, the Alternator does kind of feel superior. As for the Volt, this is definitely the SMG that I'm the most excited for. It's the one that I'm really looking forward to using more than anything else in Titanfall 2. So this is kind of like the Peacekeeper, if you're familiar with some other FPS titles that Respawn Studios may at one point have some involvement in. The Peacekeeper is one of the first downloadable content weapons in one of those games. I actually don't remember which title it was, so I'm not even trying to play dumb here. I actually don't remember which one it was, but basically that gun was a hybrid between an SMG and an assault rifle. So it was kind of longer range, little lower rate of fire, but still a good, decent rate of fire. A little bit lower damage profile than what an assault rifle might have, but it was just that tweener gun, right? And a lot of people really loved it because it played into a lot of their play styles. It just allowed them to do both roles pretty decently, and if they had to, play hard on the assault rifle role or play hard on the SMG role, the weapon was not completely terrible in those roles. The Volt has that same spirit, that same feel to me, so I'm very excited to give that a try in the final release of the game. I played with it a lot in the PC Capture event version of the game, which you're seeing gameplay of right around here. And yeah, it just has excellent hip fire, even out to very long ranges. I'm going to really try to find a clip right about here of a guy that was ejecting from his Titan, and even though I don't really get many hits on the guy, I think I only hit him 1 or 2 times while he's ejecting, but just look at how straight my bullets are going. Look at how close to his body all the tracers are when I'm firing at full auto. Like, the hip fire at this thing out to long ranges is fantastic. So I'm really excited to play with this gun and get really good with it, because I think it's going to be the quintessential PC SMG user's gun in a lot of cases. Next up, let's go ahead and talk about the shotguns very briefly. So you have 2 choices here. You have the Mastiff and the EVA 8 Auto. So the differences here is that the Mastiff is semi-automatic, 1 shot per trigger pull. The EVA 8 Auto is, well, fully automatic. The EVA 8 has been changed very massively since Titanfall 1. So if you're not a Titanfall 1 player, let me kind of explain the differences here. So in the first game, the EVA 8 shotgun was not fully automatic. It was semi-auto. It had a fairly low firing rate. It had a fairly large spread, but very good range and damage characteristics. So it was still effective out to pretty, for what some people would consider pretty ridiculous ranges. In Titanfall 2, that has been reined in a lot. The spread has become much tighter. It's become, the range has been brought down very significantly. The damage numbers, I mean, I can't really comment on the damage numbers. I don't know what exactly they are. But basically with the new EVA 8 Auto shotgun, what happens is you have to actually have really good aim and really good positioning in order to 1 or 2 shot people with it. In addition, you're able to get headshots now. So if you have really good aim and you can actually get some headshots off on people, this is a very deadly gun when used appropriately. So they made the weapon more skill intensive while not nerfing its ability to be a good shotgun. So Respawn has done a 10 out of 10 job on updating this weapon for Titanfall 2. It's going to be a lot less hated, it's going to be a lot less banned, it's going to be a lot more skill intensive and a lot more fun for a lot of players to play with and against. So I'm really excited to see how this one turns out. The Mastiff, on the other hand, well, sure, maybe it's not as competitive of a weapon, but who cares? It's a laser shotgun. It's really cool. It's really fun. One of the coolest things that you can do with it is combine it with the Gravity Star, and you can actually bend your laser shotgun, I don't even know if you want to call them shells or bullets or lasers or what to call them, but the projectiles that are fired from your Mastiff actually will bend around corners and they will be attracted towards the center of your Gravity Star. So you can see in a couple of clips here that I'm going to try to find and post, at least one of them I think I can. You'll see me killing a person over the crest of a roof with the Gravity Star by bending my shots over the crest of the roof. It's a very cool tactic, a very fun tactic. You feel extremely badass whenever you actually get a kill with it. Like, it took me probably a half hour to learn how to angle everything just right to get a kill, but when I got that very first kill, oh man, it felt so good. So Mastiff, maybe not the most competitive, but it's definitely super duper fun. Just don't write it off just because it's, maybe quote unquote not the most competitive weapon in the game. It's still really strong. Next up, let's go ahead and talk about the sniper rifles available in Titanfall 2. You have 3 selections this time. 2 of them are old standbys from Titanfall 1, and 1 of them is brand new. So the old standbys, you got the Kraber and the Longbow. The brand new guy is going to be the Double Take, which is probably my favorite of the 3. But we'll talk about them in order here. So the Kraber, what do we have here? This is a 1-shot, 1-kill sniper rifle. Any range, anywhere on the enemy pilot's body, if you hit them, they die. Period. End of story. The balancing factor to this weapon is that you need to lead your shots. It's not a hit scan weapon, it is a projectile weapon, so the bullet must travel from your gun, you must lead your shots. So It seems very, very powerful in practice, especially with Titanfall 2's addition of the equivalent of a quick draw handle. So you're able to aim down sights very quickly with this thing if you have the right attachments on it. So quick scoping is technically now a thing in Titanfall 2, for better or for worse. It is there. So it's something that you have to recognize and you have to learn to play with and against. So I'm curious to see how the Kraber will fare now that you can aim down sights a lot faster, because that was its biggest limiting factor in Titanfall 1, is that you had to wait so long to aim down sights before your shots became accurate that you would just die to a carbine or you would die to whatever else in the time it took you to aim down sights. So with that weakness gone, and now the only time between you pulling the trigger and killing an opponent is a bullet's travel time as opposed to aiming down sights, I'm cautiously optimistic about this gun actually being decent in competitive play as well as in just general play. Like, it's actually, you're not going to see a Kraber player and think, oh god, you're not going to think that anymore. You're going to actually not hate life, kind of. So we'll see how it plays out. This gun might be super stupid strong. It might not. Just like in Titanfall 1, this is really, really, really a wild card because one-shot kill is hard to balance. So it may prove to be really strong, it may prove to be just right, it may prove to be really weak and not used, and we'll have to wait and see. This is one of the wild cards for sure. I find it very hard to rate, but I'm excited to play with it. Now, the double take, on the other hand, this is a double-barreled sniper rifle, so you pull the trigger, you get 2 shots coming out of it instead of 1. Now, these are also projectiles, they are not hit scans, so you must also lead your shot with this, but it's a little easier to lead your shot because you have 2 projectiles, which are actually not fired in a straight line out of the sniper. They do diverge from each other ever so slightly over range, so it makes it a little bit more consistent in hitting an enemy pilot with at least one of the 2 shots over range. So this will enable you to do consistent damage to enemy pilots. You may not be killing them in 1 or even 2 shots a lot of the times, but you're just consistently doing damage to them with the potential for a one-shot headshot, or if you use the amped weapons, then potential for one-shot body shots in a lot of cases. In addition, you have some great long-range ability as well. Not so much for the precision kills, but it's kind of an anti-sniper in that if there's somebody who's camping on top of a rooftop somewhere and you're having trouble dealing with them and getting close, the double take is not the worst pick in the world to pick up and start spamming that rooftop with, because you don't have to necessarily aim at them or even see them. You can just saturate that rooftop with 2 bullets, 2 bullets, 2 bullets, 2 bullets over and over and over, which are diverging, and you can just spray all over the place, and you're going to get hit markers, if not even outright kill them. It's going to, if nothing else, you're going to push them off of that power position and give your team a little bit more space to push up and then challenge that player. Is it going to be top tier or super duper competitive viable? Maybe not, but it does seem like it'll be a pretty solid choice overall for public game play. And maybe for competitive play, who knows, we'll see. But the longbow, now this is the one that I'm probably the least excited for from the bunch, but it's probably going to be the most viable in competitive play, and here's why. This weapon is, in fact, hit scan, so you do not need to lead your shots. All you need to do is put your cursor on top of somebody, click your left mouse button, and they will take damage. 2 shots to kill to the body from any range, 1 shot to headshot them. I don't know if there's a maximum range on that or not in this game, but at least within most ranges that I played with this weapon, it's a 1-shot headshot kill. Very skill intensive, very rewarding for the strong aiming player, for sure. It just seems like the least fun to me out of all the choices so far. Like, I don't know, it's not my playstyle. It's not to say it's a bad gun or whatever, it's just not for me, you know? But if you combine this with amped weapons, you combine it with the amped wall tactical ability, you're going to be able to one-shot people from anywhere on the map in any kind of body shot. It's a very, very competitive, very powerful weapon. It's going to see a lot of play in Titanfall 2. This is definitely one that I would recommend you guys try out and try to get good with, because this is going to take a lot of people by surprise with how strong this gun actually is. Next up, we have all of the LMGs available for Titanfall 2. There's 3 selections here, the L-Star, the Spitfire, and the X55 Devotion. So the L-Star, to start us off, is an energy-based LMG, so it has travel time, it has a projectile, just like a number of other weapons in Titanfall 2. Actually, I'm pretty sure that all of the laser or energy-based weapons in Titanfall 2 are pretty much all projectiles, barring 1 or 2 exceptions. So the L-Star is, well, it's fun. It's not really that great at anything else, but it's a lot of fun. say for example, you have an enemy pilot that is running across the street, like way down the other side of the map from you, and you perfectly lead them with this gun, and you watch your bullets travel all the way down the street, like on Haven, for example, and you just nail him with like 5-6 shots in a row, and he just goes down and melts. Like, it's a really good feeling if you can lead those shots and you can kill people with this from long ranges. But the hipfire characteristics of this gun are very, very, very good. If you're wanting to use this in an aggressive, SMG kind of play style, you can absolutely use the gun in that role and find some success with it. It has a pretty decently fast time to kill, pretty decent damage per shot, and you don't have to reload it technically, so it's got that going for it as well. But you got to deal with leading those shots, and you got to deal with a lot of other shortcomings in that whenever you stop shooting, the gun immediately becomes unusable for a short period of time because it's cooling off, and you're not able to just tap fire it. If you stop shooting, the gun is forced into a short reload animation, kind of where it is cooling off. So that's not the best feeling thing in the world to have to deal with, and that makes the gun very, very awkward to try and use, but it's probably the most viable of all the three options. So we'll go ahead and take a look at the Spitfire and Devotion really quick. As you can tell, I'm not really the biggest fan of them. That's not really my playstyle, but we'll try to evaluate them as fairly as we can. So the Spitfire, unfortunately, well, I guess for any LMG, the best thing about them in Titanfall 1 is that when you rodeo an enemy Titan, you have an LMG just to massacre their brains with, right? So with that no longer being an option in Titanfall 2, the primary use of the LMGs fades away. So the Spitfire is not inherently a bad weapon per se. It has good damage and range characteristics. It has a good fire rate. It has just a lot of good things going for it, but it kind of falls short of a lot of the other weapons, especially the assault rifles in general. The roles that the LMGs play in a lot of cases are just simply beat out by assault rifles. Like, say for example, you're using an X55 Devotion. Now, this is an LMG that has a wind-up time, so it shoots very slow at the start and starts speeding up over time. Say you're sitting on top of a roof and you see a couple enemy pilots running around a corner and trying to attack, like the B hardpoint, for example. Now, you could start shooting at him with a Devotion, and over the course of 3 or 4 seconds, you might fully ramp up to maximum firing speed with this gun, but it's going to start shooting so fast, you're going to have a little bit of difficulty controlling it and getting good shots on those pilots. Whereas if you could just be using the R201, you can just pump, like pop, 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 and they're both dead without you breaking much of a sweat. And you're going to do it much quicker than the X55 as well, so it's not to say that the Devotion of the Spitfire are bad guns. I mean, if you want to use an LMG, you want to have that suppressing fire playstyle in like a game mode like Attrition, where maybe Attrition is like where you want to use them. So there's like a big, huge swath of enemy minions, and you want to just plow through them as quickly as possible. An LMG is a good option for that, especially the Spitfire. If you put extended magazines on it, I think you get 96 bullets per magazine with an extended mag Spitfire. So you can just run your way through a bunch of minions really quickly, and that's probably a good use for them. But if you're not just grunt farming, it seems suboptimal against pilots. It seems suboptimal against Titans because, let's face it, if you're trying to fight an enemy Titan, just use a Grenadier weapon or an anti-Titan weapon. I mean, the LMGs just don't feel like they're that great because you have to expose yourself for such a long period of time while firing a very loud, obnoxious weapon. You're going to get shot and killed very quickly while trying to engage an enemy Titan in that way. So I don't recommend direct fire with LMGs in a lot of cases. I mean, well, I guess I do, because you should do it if you're running an LMG, but at the same time, you shouldn't be picking an LMG as your anti-Titan loadout. You should be picking it for other reasons and then just using it against Titans when the opportunity presents itself. But it's never a primary pick against Titans. I think that's probably the better way to say this. So they're not bad guns. The L-Star, at least, is really, really fun. I will be using a lot of L-Star in public matches when I'm just screwing around and having a good time, and I recommend that you all do the same as well. As for the Grenadier tier weapons, I will try to keep this one relatively short. You have the Softball, the Cold War, the Sidewinder, and the EPG. Now, these all have varying degrees of effectiveness versus Titans versus pilots. Some of them are better at one role versus another. Like, for example, the Cold War is very, very, very good against enemy pilots. Not as much against Titans. It's okay. It's not like the worst thing in the world, but the Cold War really does prefer to be used against enemy pilots. Whereas on the complete flip side, you have the Softball, which is really hard to use against enemy pilots. I actually, in like 6 minutes of game time with it, got exactly 0 kills with it. I could not kill a single thing with this weapon. It was just that difficult to use and wrap my brain around. So I think it's supposed to do really nice damage against enemy titans. So this is probably where you're going to have your primary usage of this, but it's going to be great for clearing out grunts and minions and titans and just, doing that hard work without killing enemy pilots being your focus. So it just depends on what you're trying to accomplish with your weapon. If you want to kill pilots, then Cold War, Sidewinder, EPG are all going to be fine picks. If you're trying to kill Titans, then Softball, Sidewinder, or EPG are going to be pretty decent picks. The Sidewinder and EPG, as I kind of just alluded to, are really nice middle ground picks. They're going to be effective against both Titans and pilots. Sidewinder is probably going to be a little bit better against pilots than it was in Titanfall 1, which, by the way, if you've never tried using the Sidewinder against enemy pilots in Titanfall 1, I really strongly recommend it. It's actually not terrible. It's a lot of fun to use. It does good damage. I think it's 4 or 5 direct hits with it to kill somebody, and it does splash if you just want to shoot at their feet. So I don't know. I use the Sidewinder fairly regularly, and I have a lot of fun with it when I do. So excited to see how it comes out in Titanfall 2 now that it's going to be potentially a little bit better against pilots by design. So looking forward to it. Alright everyone, that's pretty much going to do it. Thank you all for watching. I hope that you learned something new about all the pilot weapons available to you in Titanfall 2, at least all the primaries. So, if you wanted a quick recap on at least what are some of my favorites from each of the classes, assault rifles, it definitely has to go to the R201C. It's just that bread and butter weapon that's going to be good for pretty much any role that you throw at it. It's always going to perform well and in your favor. As for the SMGs, I'm very excited about the Volt in particular, as well as the Alternator. They both seem very powerful. As for shotguns, well, the EVA 8 is pretty much the way to go, but the Mastiff will be fun as a sometimes pick as well. For LMGs, the L-Star is pretty much where it's at. I'm not a huge fan of LMGs in general, but that is one that has swayed me and makes me actually want to return to it and play with it willingly, so very excited to give that one another try. As for all of the Grenadier tier weapons, I'm excited to play with all of them in the final release. The EPG and the Cold War were a lot of fun. The Sidewinder is looking like it's also going to be a whole lot of fun. And I'm really curious to try out the Softball in a game mode like Last Titan Standing, where I can really just focus on killing those Titans with it and just seeing how powerful it can actually be. Anyways, everyone, again, thank you all for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Take care.